Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Chris, and I'm one of the co-hosts of CA Overwatch. This week, we interviewed Adam Adamu, the SVP of Strategy and one of the co-founders of Overactive Media, the company that owns both the Toronto Defiant and the Toronto Ultra. We talked about a bunch of interesting things, including Toronto Defiant's roster, their coaching staff, hero pools, as well as even Valorant. Unfortunately, we can't release the full video right now, but what we want to answer is everybody's question from the weekend. Where was Surefour and Agilities during the main melee? So we hope you enjoy this video, and we hope you look forward to the rest of the video coming out later this week. Finally, we'd like to give a shout out to Bochy Riley for doing all of our overlays as well as our intro sequence. He has some amazing graphics and design skills. And if you like everything you see in here, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It really helps us out. We hope you enjoy.
Okay, you saw that we brought Zik in as well, and I think he played very well. He's just really solid on the May. And I think we are, going into the May melee. The last couple of weeks of scrims were just horrible. Right. Yeah. I mean, it was kind of really stressing me out. Okay. Yeah. And the energy levels of the players were at an all-time low for the year. Right. Brady, that's Agilities, was feeling under the weather. So I can say that part of the reason why he hasn't been playing is he's been feeling under the weather, and we've basically given him some time to recover physically. Surefour has also, struggled a little bit with, as I was saying before, Surefour is an incredibly fierce competitor. The guy wants to win every scrim that he is in.
Yep.
He has been feeling burnt out and a little frustrated, I would say, with, the fact that we're not doing well in the scrim. Okay. Yeah. And for Surefour and for other guys, he doesn't care whether it's a scrim or whether it's a game. You put in 100% every time.
Absolutely agree. It's a good mentality to have.
And with some guys, look, I mean, you scrim every single day. You have 2 or 3 blocks, okay? You might not bring it all every time. And if you're not bringing it all every time for too many times in a row, okay, there's going to be tension among some of the more senior players and some of the other guys that are there. And keeping everybody kind of psychologically fit is very important for the team and the balance, right? And there is nobody that everybody on this team respects more than Surefour. The guy is like one of the OGs in Overwatch.
Yep.
I think he's probably our best player along with Kareev in terms of just the mechanics when you see the guy pop off. And I knew that with Surefour, he was having he was having some challenges that a break would be good for him for the long term and the rest of the season, when he was accidentally popped into the San Francisco Shock game and the guy just destroyed everybody, right?
Yeah.
He was kind of feeling frustrated. He was given a week off. He accidentally was basically put in, and I was watching that and I thought, okay, this is Surefour sending a message, right? That if I want to play, okay, if I want to basically be the best player in this league, I can still do it, but you guys got to get your act together and do the same thing back for me.
Yeah,
and
he looked good.
And so we've given him a break. I mean, that's kind of what we preempted it. We see the people have retired in this league, okay, that are sad to see go. We see people getting frustrated. You've got a guy here that thrives under intense pressure. He's one of the best players. He didn't sign up to play from home. He didn't sign up to play for a team that is struggling. And if I can basically give him some time to get his shit together so we can get our shit together, all right, especially going into a break when we are scrimming not very well, and I'm not overly optimistic, and then use those next 2 weeks to basically bring him back and rebuild, that's the best thing I can do for him and the team.
Okay, I mean, obviously one of the questions everyone wanted to know was where Surefour, why wasn't he playing? And And again, some people were like, why do you think this guy? I knew there was more to it than that. So thank you for sort of clearing that up, because
there's no drama though. There's no, like Surefour has never said anything like, oh, I'm going to retire or I want to quit. Right? Like that is not where we're at with Surefour. Where we are at with Surefour is I made a commitment to him when we brought him on. There was a couple of things. First of all, I said, you're the best Canadian player in the world, and I want the best Canadian player in the world to be on my team. And secondly, I made a commitment to him that we were going to be doing whatever we could to make this team a competitive team, and we were failing him on that front. And so, I'm Brady's under the weather. Surefour is a little frustrated. I've got this young kid, Zik, who is popping off over there that I can kind of bring in and trial going into a bit of a tough period for us. And I think it was a great idea. The idea came from Jay. I agreed with it. We brought him on, and I think this kid's got a lot of potential too.
Yeah, and so let's talk about Zik, because obviously a little bit of a rough start, but for the most part, from what I can tell, it was sort of like you said, Brady was under the weather. I don't know how much preparation in terms of how much scrim time did he get. Like, it was a little bit. I think he struggled a little bit, but that's like for the most part to be expected. Like, I saw his tweet where he was like apologizing, and I was like, man, you don't need to apologize, right? Like, there was issues with this, and it's so unfair to expect greatness from someone coming into an already established roster with, like, essentially, from what I could gather at least, not a ton of scrim time. So, and I thought he did okay. Like, you're right. Like, I mean, whatever. He has time to improve. He has time to build his team chemistry and all of that. So,
hello.
Yeah, Chris, we can hear you. What's up?
Oh, you can hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Sorry. I've had some big mic troubles here.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
So we can hear you now. So that's good. I was just gonna ask, like, the thoughts that went into Zik, the 2-week trial. So just to clarify, your plan is to trial this kid, see what he's good at. Because I actually thought his May was good. His Echo a little bit less so, but again, his May was really good, and that was a bit of a weakness for this team. So I'm excited to see where that goes. Is this sort of the plan that to keep him on the team and try to develop this, and sort of like what Washington Justice did with Jonnu and Stitch? And where's your guys' heads at with that?
We're going to assess. The players are going to start scrimming again beginning on Tuesday, and he's going to be in the rotation for the scrims. He came in last Tuesday in terms of he started scrimming with us at that point. We were kind of trying him and Logix, him and Surefour. Combinations. Brady was, like I said, he was feeling a little bit under the weather, so Brady wasn't scrimming with us last week. And the combinations of kind of Zik, Surefour, Logix, and Zik were all kind of working very well. We thought we had a pretty good cadence there. He didn't scrim much, 3 or 4 days. Near the latter half of the week, we went exclusively with Logix and Zik. Once we kind of decided that Surefour wasn't going to play on the weekend, we just kind of went with the two of them. I think he scrimmed better than he did, say, on the first map. I think he was a little nervous there. Look, he's playing for the first time. He's on with some of his heroes on both teams, and he's a little nervous. I think he did well, and I think he's got a lot of upside. He scrimmed very well. I think his hero pool is complementary to what we've got, and as of this point, again, I'm not going to commit 100% to anything, but I can say that I like him, and I think he's got a role here. Look, I'll tell you what I told our guys last week going into this weekend, right?
Yeah.
If you want to retire, then retire, okay? And everybody will be sorry to see you go, but if you want to do that, let me know, and we'll figure out an exit strategy for you. But if you're not going to retire, I need you to come in every day and give 100%.
Absolutely.
At every scrim, okay? And if you're not giving 100% at every scrim, I don't care if it's the third block of the day, okay? If you're not giving 100%, I would much rather have somebody, coming in that's half as good as you and putting in 100% than having you put in 50%, okay? And so what we're going to do is I am going to make sure that I've got options, right? And it doesn't matter for which role or for which person. If you are not giving 100%, particularly with this 2-week rule, right, where I can basically trial people, right? I can bring people in and they will play for you. And if they basically start kicking your ass and we've got better chemistry, you're not going to be able to come back in. So don't lose what you have, right? And And I think we need some of that pressure, okay? Some of that pressure that you're talking about, Chris, in terms of people not wanting to be benched, okay? We need that pressure on some of these guys to basically make sure they're giving 100%. Look, it's tough. I get it.
Yeah.
They're in their apartments, okay? This is not what they asked for. But you know what? We've got our fans out there that expect the best of them and the best of us and the best of our coaches. And this is not going to be an organization where you can ride because you're unhappy because, you know, you lost to the Golden Gophers last scrim set, okay?
Yeah. There's definitely something. I love to draw parallels between esports, and especially Overwatch, and like traditional sports. And I think one thing that you guys have tried to do really well, and one thing you're trying to go towards, is build longevity. And it's so hard to build longevity in an esport like Overwatch because these individuals, they can just retire and go make money from streaming, or they can go and use skills that are kind of transferable to some can. And use these skills that are kind of transferable to a different game. Whereas if you're playing hockey, you can't go stream hockey, and those skills aren't transferable to a thing like football. So the pressure to stay where you are and really work on yourself, and work on your ability to get better in certain areas is a lot higher than I think it is, from the outside at least, from outsider's perspective, than it is in Overwatch, and that makes it so much harder to build longevity. So I think it's definitely good that you guys are trying to train people to have more positive motivation, positive pressure in those types of areas.
Yeah, and you know the thing is, you know, if you've got and I won't say it's like, you know, we have a big problem with any one of these players, right? It's just sometimes it's a lack of motivation that basically sets in, and what happens is the guys that are 100% full intensity, right? They get demotivated when some of the other guys aren't 100% full intensity, right? And so that ends up eating away at the people that are committed, right? And again, if you do not have a deep enough bench to basically make changes, even if somebody's just feeling like, you know, crap and needs a few days off of scrimming, if you don't have that and they need to be there every single time, it just, you go in the wrong direction. And like I said, the last couple of weeks of scrims, I've been watching them closely. I've been kind of talking to the coaches. I am not happy with the level of energy that we have in them or had in them.
Yeah.
And we cannot be successful as an organization or as a team. Look, we are a team that is actually very good mechanically. We've got a great group of players. I would like, you know, I was watching those games on the weekend, like I'm sure that you guys were, and seeing some peak Overwatch. Like, we can be there. I can tell you, we scrimmed Atlanta in the week before, and we beat them 5 maps in a row, okay? Yeah. Because they were up for that game, okay?
Yeah.
They were pumped, and I gave them the speech that I just told you about, that I gave them about kicking their ass and putting in the energy, and they popped into that game, and they had the energy, and they were looking like peak Overwatch fine, okay? Yeah. But the problem is, it right now it's not lasting, and we got to get to that point where it does.
Yeah, and it's because I agree. Like, this is why it's one of those teams where I've talked about sometimes just like giving the fans hope. Man, people forget this was a team that brought the Philadelphia Fusion to 5 maps. This was a team that the LA Valiant just came top 4 in that Overwatch tournament, and we absolutely should have won that game. That game was more than winnable for us.
Gladiators too. We should have beat the Gladiators.
I completely agree, and even the Shock. I understand that, like, you're like, hey, with the Shock are a really good team. The first map we won. The Kings Row, we should have won had there not been a boop, and even Rialto was an incredibly close match that easily could have been 3-1 Defiant. So there's multiple times where I've been like, man, this Defiant team is so close to kind of getting over this hump. It just seems like every time they're close, there's a Moth 3-man boop, or there's
and you know, and that's a scrim problem, right? And so what's happening there is, you know, when you've got game day energy, right? Yeah. These guys are playing with more energy, right? But because they haven't been doing it during the week, okay, they're not used to the pressure when the time comes up, right? Yeah. They're not used to playing with that intensity. And when it comes right down to it, mental mistakes are happening, and they are basically, I mean, everybody's saying, well, what just happened there, right?
Yeah.
And so we need to get to that energy level and that intensity level. And there is just, you know, and I'll say it to the guys if they're watching, like, guys, this is like, it's on you. You've got to bring the energy in every single day. Okay, you are professional players doing basically having the time of your life, okay, making more money than you ever thought you could possibly make playing video games. You're a star. People wear your jersey, and walk around and pay big money for it too, because those things are expensive. And
I have one.
The only thing that you need to do back is basically you got to communicate, during the scrims and the games. And you got to put in 100% when you're playing a game, whether it's a practice or it's a match game. Those are the two things that we ask of you, and it's not a lot, okay? Yeah. And we both as an organization and as fans and everybody else, has that expectation of these guys. I think they want to do it. I think we need to break out of this I'm in my apartment mentality. That is the biggest problem. If we had the facility available, we were practicing, and we had live events, this would not be an issue. I can understand you get down on yourself. You're not winning. You lose to Houston after taking Philadelphia to 5.
Yeah.
You're kind of on a downward spiral. You kind of get down on yourself psychologically. You feel a little gray. You're not allowed to leave. I understand that, okay? But now we're going into nice warm weather. The sun is shining.
Yeah.
Let's get the energy out and let's kick some ass.
No, and I mean, I love that mentality. I understand the whole player wellness, and I know you guys do too, right? We went at Baroy, and I know it's a big part of it. Obviously, the coronavirus situation of playing in your apartments, I think everyone's very and on top of that, hero pools, which again I've heard a lot of pro players talk about, and organizations, how much it's put pressure on the coaching staff and the players. So I think everyone's understanding of the mental strain that this sort of thing takes. But I like your idea as to if you want to retire, you will support them in that decision. But if they are going to stay on and stay in contract and stay with the team, you just expect them to give it their all, which I think is true for almost every job. Now, it doesn't always happen, but I think that's a really good mentality to have in competitive, esports as well as competitive sports. It's pretty transferable across multiple different industries. So this is, I think, a little bit similar because I look at the acquisition of a guy like Cruz, and I wonder if he was someone who was almost brought in directly to sort of try to help mitigate this issue. Is that what you guys had in mind with Cruz? Because mechanically, and obviously he was on the, I don't know if I can say mechanically, that's not fair, but he was on the Paris Eternal last year, and they obviously didn't exactly light the league on fire. When you brought in someone like Cruz, what was sort of the rationale behind that decision? Was it sort of to help sort of add this spark that you've just been talking about because he is such a vocal and driven player? Yeah. Is that sort of what you guys had in mind there?
Yeah, so when we've got basically multiple layers to selecting players, and it's in a better place now than it was at the beginning of the season. We're kind of building on it all the way through. One of the things that we do is we put together a psych assessment where they do a psych test that we have prepared. All of our players across all of our teams need to do it, including the coaches and myself, right? And what that shows is which characteristics kind of really stand out and which players you're more compatible with and so forth, right?
Yeah.
And what we do, in order to be successful on that stuff, we go into looking for a player knowing what we want the psych assessment to say, okay? Mm-hmm. And what we wanted with that position, particularly with Kellex moving, where I was saying earlier on where we were weak was on the communication and the shot calling and the in-game leadership. This guy is basically off the charts on all of those areas, right?
Completely. Yeah, I've never met him personally, but
right. He is. I mean, he made an impact on that right away, right? Yeah. He is a guy that basically is an excellent teammate. He rallies everybody. He's the first guy to basically say, "Hey, don't let that loss bother you guys. We're on to the next one. Let's kind of move it forward." He is a unifier, right? He's brought other players that had very strong leadership potential, but are not like the alpha leader. They're kind of a good beta leader. Yeah. And in the absence of an alpha leader, the beta leaders also kind of suffer, right? Yeah. And so by him stepping up, other guys in those secondary roles have also stepped up. And to me, that position needed somebody, first and foremost, obviously that was mechanically gifted enough to be able to play Overwatch at a professional level.
Obviously, absolutely, without saying.
To me, that was more important because if we could get we've also got Kareev, one of the best guys on the other side playing with them. And if we could basically increase the level of communication, I thought that, and I think we can be a much more effective team. It's not so much always having, you can get the 5 best players in the league, or the 6 best players in the league in each position, and basically have a team that is not very good. This is a team game, okay? And Cruz is fundamentally important to the team mentality that we're putting together. We're really happy to have him.
Yeah, no, I mean, when I first saw the pickup, obviously, like I said, with the whole Pearson thing, I was a little bit concerned, but I was like, his shot calling, his decisiveness is just so, from what I've heard, like you said, off the charts, that I was like, if that was a weakness in this team, then clearly you addressed it with arguably one of the best possible players you could go out and get, especially since he was pretty good last year. Like, the Pearson Turner had their struggles, but Cruz, no one ever really singled him out as like the issue with that team. Like, I've actually heard pretty good things about him. Obviously, I wasn't on the team last year, but I did like that, especially in replacing of someone like Kelly, like you said, if that was an issue and a weakness with the team. I think it was a good call. So,
yeah, he's had an impact already, and I think, you know, kind of going forward, you know, I see that there's few players that can do the role that I've seen in terms of basically being the team leader and a unifier. Yeah. I just like he is. Like, I have not met him in person yet because of COVID, and I think he's still not in Toronto yet. But, you know, he is a guy that, you know, you could basically hang around with and be best buds with at the same time as like a fierce competitor. And you need people like that on the team. Yeah.
So I completely agree. And I think it's going to be one of those things where, and I like that you brought up earlier that you guys are being Atlanta, because I actually agree. Like, I had this going into this weekend. Had I not seen the Vancouver game, I actually might have predicted you guys over Atlanta because of how you guys looked versus, like I said, the Gladiators, Shock, and the Valiant.
Atlanta always kicks their ass in scrims, and so it's frustrating. I think there's just some teams you just don't, you know, do well against, and when we beat them that week, it was obviously kind of it lifted us up. But, you know, then on the other hand, you know, when Florida picked Atlanta, you know, everybody thought that was a surprise, and it wasn't a surprise to us because we know that Florida always beats Atlanta the same way that Atlanta always beats us, right? Yeah. So,
and Florida had a good run too, which is really cool. So I guess I'm sort of transitioning a little bit to because it was such a positive weekend for Overwatch, and I don't want to bring any negativity on the May Melee tournament. I think it did. Sure. A lot of people had a lot of fantastic takeaways. The viewership did really well. It was one of the first times, I think, since like the New York homestand at the beginning of the year, right, where it was just like overwhelming positivity amongst the entire community.
It was.
There's very little negative to say about how successful that tournament was, and the break I think was really well timed, and they're continuing the tournaments. Like, there's a lot of really good things. We can finally get our tokens back.
Watching that, the ball talent, which was sweet,
and the Shanghai Seoul Dynasty game was fantastic. And I can't think of two better franchises in that region that I'd rather see go at it than the Seoul Dynasty, Shanghai Dragons. So I think a lot of positivity to go around. It was a little bit unfortunate that from the Defiant side, there was this sort of cloud of negativity because of how it went. And I know you put out a big Reddit post. Not Reddit post, sorry. Discord post in the Toronto Defiant Discord. If you guys aren't there, you should join. It's, again, a great place to talk general Defiant stuff, and you get posts like this. And I believe it was you who posted that. And first of all, I love the communication. That was something that I wanted more of, and that's one of the reasons I was really happy that you reached out to us to come on the show, because I think it really helps give the fans some insights that they don't necessarily get. But in that post, and we sort of touched on this before, but I just wanted to bring it back. You sort of talked about how this was a really good time to reset, try new things, and then shed some light. Like, we were just wondering if you could shed some light on sort of what you were thinking about and how important this break is. I know we've talked about it a bit before, but really, like,
is there any other thing?
Yeah.
Are there any other things that you guys are thinking of doing apart from the stuff that we've already been talking about?
You know, I think we are. Look, we're taking a look around at if there's going to be adjustments that are going to be made. They're going to be made around this time. I think, like I said, it's a bit of a reset.
Yeah.
We're not satisfied with the kind of performance of the team, and at the same time, I do want to say that because we're not playing everybody, it's hard to know. We went into the May Melee, in 12th place, 0-3. Kind of that looks pretty bad. But look, we played the 3 games was Gladiators, Valiant, and Shock. Okay, and so and then before that, we've also played Florida before we knew how good they really were.
Yeah, right? I was gonna say.
So and then Boston has also improved, and Washington and Paris. So I don't think it's as bad as maybe we sometimes kind of put it out there, but sometimes it looks like we're a little disorganized during the game. Yep. It looks like we are not transitioning well, and I think those are things that we need to look at and improve and figure out what barriers are in the way to improving that. Now we have sports psychologist on staff, Martina. who's been working with the players. I think that's a very important role to have, to make sure that you've got the communication, kind of levels and the stress levels. We've also got a physiotherapist, a physical conditioning coach that basically works with them. Sometimes they have wrist injuries. I know a few of them had some of those injuries that we've been conditioning them.
Yep.
It's even harder when you don't have, kind of a crew of backups to basically come in and sit in. So they got to play through those. This will give everybody a chance to reset from, ailments, injuries, feeling shitty and down, if I can, use those words on this podcast. And then we're going to look, at what adjustments we can make with making changes, bringing things in.